What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Super Bowl 56 Props Podcast and YouTube show. Best bets, long shots, values, everything you need to know, player props, game props to bet on Super Bowl 56, Los Angeles Rams, Cincinnati Bengals. Props Guide is out. We'll be in Vegas here in a couple days, but first we had to sit down. We haven't done it in over a year, but we had to come back and give you the best bets for the Super Bowl. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester. You know me, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Joined, like always, for the Props Podcast, CFB Moose, aka my brother, aka Data Guru at Occupy Fantasy. Moose, what's up?
You also forgot the most important part is diehard
Bengals fan.
Bengals fan.
Yes, sorry.
Yes. No worries. All good. Yeah, I'm like you said, pumped. Haven't been to Vegas in a couple years. Uh really glad to be back. Got a jam-packed schedule ahead of us, so can't wait. I'm doing great.
It's going to be danger zone for Moose for 4 days as a Bengals fan in Vegas for the Super Bowl. I can't believe it. And then we also had to bring in our guy, Mike Carey, who's been going to Vegas longer than pretty much anyone listening to this show. Comes out every year for the Super Bowl, bets on props with us, knows the ins and outs and the lay of the land. Mike Carey, what's up, man? It's good to talk to you.
It's great to be doing this again. Great to be actually heading out to Vegas this time around. Cannot wait for this trip. I'll be. I'm definitely on Cincinnati as well. So you'll probably be hearing my bias here throughout the podcast.
All right, guys. I'll try to level the field a little bit as we have two Bengal supporters in. But so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk through why Super Bowl is one of the best times to bet in the entire world of the year. Why it's one of the best events to bet on, especially from a prop standpoint. We'll talk about what bets we normally try to make in the Super Bowl and why they're so profitable. We'll discuss our favorite value bets, what our projections and our models are telling us for this Super Bowl, and then we'll give out some long shot bets and some MVP predictions here at the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. That way you get notified when we go live. We're doing basically a new Super Bowl video every week. Every other video is DFS focused. This is betting focused. So everything you need for the Super Bowl, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up if you like the content. Any questions about bets, comment on the video below or hop in our Discord server, join the props channel, and we'll be chatting it up all weekend. Now, I got to say, our props guide is out, and we do this for our Discord members. We have never had a losing Super Bowl, not to get hashtag tout on everyone, but we have a process in place. We know what the sportsbooks are going to do. And most importantly, we know what the public's going to do. We talk about it in DFS. It's important to know what the field's going to do because knowing what the public is going to do shapes when and how and what we bet for the Super Bowl. So, again, if you want the props guide, join our Discord server. Click the link in the description below. So, Mike, I'm going to kick it to you because we've been doing this for so long. And if, for those of you listening, you've probably heard this spiel before, but Mike, please tell us, and those out there listening, why the Super Bowl specifically is such a good time to bet and why it's so profitable.
Sure. So like Brian was saying, this is not your Tuesday night action game. Okay. Everyone has action on the Super Bowl. It's the biggest public game of the year. The handle will be, I saw somewhere in the 400 million territory. 31.5 million people expect to bet on the game. I'm sure that's low and wrong. I'm sure it's way higher than that. But it's a great opportunity to take advantage of a large variety of props and bets on a single game. It's so many props. I mean, if you just look at the Superbook, for example, but now with the apps, there are so many books that have this number, high number of props. It's impossible for the books to be monitoring those lines with as much care as they normally would for your even just a run-of-the-mill regular season Sunday game. There's also a huge public influence. Like I said, it's the biggest bet game of the year. I mean, every year it's the most bet game in history. The public and their tendencies are going to move the lines, to things like overs, more points, and whatever, in this case, pulling for, maybe a live underdog. So, there's a lot of movement that we can anticipate just by looking at how the Super Bowl lines have moved for this now being our 10th Super Bowl in Vegas. So we have a lot of data that we can look at to determine those trends. Uh, and
Right.
and so that kind of that combination really makes it an opportunity for us to take advantage of those bets.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of factors at play here. You mentioned the public influence. And Moose, if you were trying to get a lot of money down on props on a regular Sunday night game, you probably couldn't get that much down. But we've seen reports, and we know reports, and I won't raise my hand as to the amount that I've been able to get down. But we saw a tweet earlier this week that one of the books out in Vegas took over 100K in sharp action from a single bettor on props
Yeah.
alone, and the fact that they let sharp bettors bet that on the Super Bowl is something that we can take advantage of because they're not as worried about us because they get so much public action, right?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't see that. You see that where most time on a Sunday night game, you might be able to get $500 down on a prop. Here, pretty much is standard now in any Vegas book to have 2K or even more if you ask at the counter. Or some of these legal books outside of Nevada as well. I'm sure they're taking some pretty good action on that as well. So you can get a lot of money down during Super Bowl on these props.
And one of the biggest factors that we haven't discussed yet for props, specifically game props, that we see so many of in the Super Bowl, and we'll see these, a couple times per year on big games, but the wide variety of game props. And we know for a fact the biggest advantage for us is that these books they have limited time to get these props out there. So what they do when they generate game props like will there be a score in the last 2 minutes of the first half? Will there be a touchdown under 1.5 yards? Will there be a defensive special teams touchdown? Moose, they generate these based off spreadsheets with equations based pretty much on the inputs of game total and game spread and not what these team tendencies are, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Now there is some slight changes for team tendencies and stuff like that. But I went to a sports betting conference last year. They brought in a speaker from overseas, and he basically pointed out he did like live on the show what he would make some certain props based off the spreadsheet for the company that he works for, and then he went to like actual sports books and it had that exact line, and I'm just like, that's good to know.
Right. Thanks for sharing that industry data with us. But again, that just kind of confirmed, Mike, what we've known this entire time, right? And we've seen it every year. We know what the books are doing. Every time we come in, we'll have a handful of bets that we're looking to make because we know what the book is going to do. And getting that confirmation just lets us know that we've been on the right path, and it hasn't been just some variance from our part that we've been winning these bets all these years.
Yeah, exactly. Completely agree.
So, all right. So we haven't been to Vegas in 2 years. COVID got us last year, but we're back this year. And Moose, I got to say, I didn't get down as much action. Maryland's not a legal sports betting state. It wasn't last year. So it's been a year off for me, and I'm a little nervous going out there. I don't want to be, sideswiped by anything new, but has anything changed in the betting or prop markets that we should be aware of for the Super Bowl in the last couple of years?
I think just from the explosion of sports betting in the entire United States, I think other than that, that's changed. In Nevada, I haven't really seen too much. I'll let you know because I'm going to be the first one to get to Vegas. I'm going to rush right to the sports book, talk to some of the people there. Mike, I thought you were going to mention this, but you go there, you talk to some of the people in the line, and within 30 seconds, you realize why Vegas is going to win millions of dollars off this game.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The tech may have changed with the apps, but the people certainly have not. It will be coin toss bets, Gatorade bath bets. Uh, will there be a safety? Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's amazing. Own a casino. It's the best investment of all time.
That's for damn sure. So most you live in Virginia, unlike me and Mike Carey here. So you've been able to get in some action before us. Been getting in on some of those ASAP bets that we lay out in the props guide. What have you noticed so far? The lines that we're looking for, the our own projections versus the lines. Have you noticed anything in particular yet?
So the biggest thing for me is, unlike Nevada, we have a bunch of odds boosts, deposit bonuses for thousands of dollars. So if you're new, you want to try it out, go to a couple books, get the deposit bonuses. You're basically playing for house money on the Super Bowl. But the biggest thing that stood out to me is how different the lines are across all the different books. Here in Virginia, I think we're up to like 12 or 13. And just an example here, out in Vegas, Odell Beckham scored a touchdown from the handful of apps I could actually get outside of Nevada. Pretty much plus 140 everywhere you look. Circa has plus 125, so a 15-cent difference. Over here in Virginia, across the 10 or so books I looked at, you can get anywhere between plus 110 to plus 140. So a 30-cent difference, and this goes across all the different lines as well. Brian, I talked to you about one of the touchback props, which was like a 50-cent difference compared to the market out in Vegas. So biggest thing to me is just how wide distributed these lines are in
And
the
you may,
legal states.
yeah, and you may think, okay, what's 10 cents? What's 20 cents? But when you bet 40 bets in a Super Bowl, like we anticipate betting, when you bet 40 bets per year over 10 to 20 years, 40 cents, if you every $100 you bet, you save $40. That's a massive amount of savings in addition to your ROI. So it's incredibly important to line shop. And as Moose pointed out, we are partnered with a bunch of legal sports books in legal states. So go to occupyfantasy.com, click the sports betting link in the main menu, find your state that you live in, and again, click one of the partner books. We have deposit bonuses. Go check all of that out, occupyfantasy.com. So Mike, we mentioned some of the game props that are go-to for us, right? Every year we know to look for these types of props. What are some of the ones that we're looking at this year that we may or may not get when we get out to Vegas?
Yeah, so one of the first ones is no defensive or special teams score. And, while we've been burned on that a good amount of times over the last 10 years, it's still such a rarity and it's such a big game where, the play calling is slightly more conservative than normal to have a defensive or special teams score. Normally teams especially in regards to special teams, normally teams get to the Super Bowl because they can cover kicks and know the value of good field position. And then with the defensive scores, that's more or less luck variance there. Even in the defensive scores that we have seen over the last 10 years, nothing really like 90-yard interception return for touchdowns. It's been quick score down at the opponent their own goal line, run in a fumble or an interception or something like that. So right now it looks like we're projecting that line should be at minus 265, and it looks like it's around 180 right now, or we should be looking for around 180. Probably can get something like minus 200, maybe minus 225. But
real quick, that's one of those bets that we can look to game day because we know the public's going to be betting defensive touchdown every day.
Absolutely. This is a great opportunity to take advantage of that public influence. The public, again, like with the safety bet, they'll want to see kind of splash plays and profit off a big, or a bigger plus number. Any number, any of these props, the public is more likely going to fade, not fade, but favor any plus money bets. So this would be one of those examples. Another bet that we like a lot is eat both quarterbacks individually, not some sort of parlay, but individually both quarterbacks, their first pass being complete. Again, going back to that conservative game plan and start, a lot of teams we'll see this all the time, run a 5-yard hitch route to just kind of get the quarterback that feeling of the rhythm. Identify your first 15 plays are always going to be scripted. Everybody knows that, going in. I'm sure all the listeners here, know that there's the first drives are always going to be scripted. So they're going to want to start on that first drive on first down, with a strong gain. And the best way to do that is knowing or hitting a open receiver on a planned route like that. So we like both of the quarterbacks to throw their first pass complete. And it's one of my favorite type of bets. We were talking about this before we started here, the instant win or lose bets. He kind of gets the crowd, especially in a place like Vegas, but even at your own, Super Bowl party, gets everybody going, with either like a win or a loss right at the beginning, and everybody feels into it. So I not only is it a good value bet for us, but it is also kind of an exciting bet.
And that's part of the fun too, right? We have to have some excitement and nothing like starting 5-0 in props on that first drive, and it's all uphill from there.
Oh yeah, that's when you tell the waiter or waitress, "Hey, bring another round. We're hammering now." So when you go 0-5, you say, "All right, bring the water." bring the water for the next couple rounds.
Bring the tap water, please. Moose, any other of those game prop type bets that you're looking at that we generally bet that are sticking out this year, either from a perspective that, oh, we're going to bet that as soon as we get there, or hey, the lines are kind of sharp, and we might not be able to bet it this year?
Yeah, so another game day bet that I like is, will there be 3 unanswered scores? And if you just ask someone that, doesn't really look at the data, or just from like offhand, hey, you think it'll be 3 consecutive scores by a single team? You're like, no, that seems kind of like a blowout. Probably not, but between Cincinnati and Rams games, that's happened roughly 75% in their games where there's been 3 unanswered scores. So we like that. Again, it's a larger favorite, so the public's not going to bet that, so we can wait until game day. Looks like right now you can get it around minus 200, but that should drop, and we'll should be able to get a lower number on game day. The other one I like is the shortest touchdown under 1.5 yards. I've always loved this. I don't necessarily think we'll get this on game day. Right now it's around minus 150. The line we're looking for is minus 110. We're thinking it's going to have around a 58% chance based on our calculations. Again, something to keep an eye on. And again, if you're in all these different legal states, there's a bunch of different sports books that have their own independent lines. So again, go ahead and line shop. There may be a rogue number out there that you can pick off.
And honestly, that type of bet, you might be able to arb both sides and get plus 110 on both sides if you shop properly. And Moose, that first prop you mentioned, 75% chance, that's the ultimate testament to the book setting a line based on the game spread of 4.5 points and not the tendencies of these two streaky teams that allow or themselves score 3 times in a row. So really love that bet. We projected at 75%, but you can get it basically at a 67% chance if you get it at minus 200. So really good stuff. All this stuff that we're talking about is in our props guide. We release it for free. It's in our OccupyFantasy.com Discord channel in the props channel. It's free for anyone who's in the server. Just click join below this video to join the Discord server. Subscribe here on YouTube or become a yearly member of Occupy Fantasy. Get access to the Discord server and get access to the guide. Over 140 bets are posted. What lines to look for, what our projected lines are, and then most importantly, when to bet them. Bet them now before they move, bet them whenever they're available, or wait until game day for the public to make the line even better for us. So let's keep it moving here, and let's talk about what our projections are telling us for this game from a player perspective. Mike, you and I were talking before, I guess all week we've been talking about these props, but we were talking about the Rams run game, and our projections like the unders, especially for Cam Akers, for a variety of factors, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so when Cam Akers came back, he had one regular season game, I think, where he had 1 or 2 carries for about 3 yards, but then, made his presence known here in the playoffs. But even still, if you look at his yardage totals, against the props, even last week when it seemed like he was going to go way over his prop total, he still went under. He's still splitting carries with Sony Michel, and now I did not participate for the last couple of days at practice due to a shoulder injury. So, yeah, I think I'm loving the under here on the Rams run game, especially with Cam Akers.
Yep, absolutely. And if you look at the passing game, Moose, so when we found out the Rams were going to be in the Super Bowl, Moose, you and I texted and we said they should set Cooper Kupp prop lines at like 12.5 receptions, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, because the public's going to bet over on all of them. But I got to say, I'm shocked that his lines are so low, and that even has some books that they're dropping. And I'm completely baffled, Moose. And I never thought I would be in a position to say that we're hammering Cooper Kupp overs 5 days before the Super Bowl starts.
Yeah, I mean, we said that this was going to probably be an ASAP bet. I said I didn't think they were going to open up that many receiving yards, because I feel like it would just get steamed under. Right. But it opened up for like 107-ish or whatever at the Superbook, down to 105.5. And if you told me Kupp receiving yards is trending downward, like it's moving down, I would slap you in the face. I don't see how that's even possible.
Yeah, I mean, and we're a DFS channel, right? I'm gonna have way less Cooper Cup in my millionaire lineups. So at least if I'm gonna make some money back, at least hit overs in your props. And Mike, I gotta say, there are no sure bets in props in sports, but Cooper Cup getting 9 catches for 100 yards and probably a touchdown seems like one of the safer overs that we've ever been on in Super Bowl history.
Yeah, I mean we're definitely team under. So to be this confident in a wide receiver's over, I think says a lot about Cup's ability, and really what it is his ability to create yards after the catch. My confidence in Stafford isn't at an all-time high. I mean, I think he's been a great quarterback. He's played very well in the playoffs here for the most part, but it's really about Cup making things happen after the catch. And he might only need 4 or 5 catches to get to that 100-yard mark.
Exactly. So, and he could. And here's the thing, right? Like these are correlated props. You don't necessarily have to play all three. When you're as confident as we are in these, you can play all three. But Mike, there's some scenarios where we'll look at our props guide, and there will be Joe Mixon under receptions, Joe Mixon under receiving yards, Joe Mixon under first catch, Joe Mixon under longest reception, and that's where you get too much money in one spot. Generally, I would say, and I'm sure you agree, let's pick the best one or find the best line and roll with that instead of putting 4 units on basically what we're amounting to one outcome of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't recommend enough spreading it out on these props, because more likely, unless it's certainly for unders, for all of them to hit, you almost need an injury. Okay, because something is going to happen where you're going to get an over or two. And you certainly don't want to go 0 for 4, 0 for 5, on one player, or even one play, killing a whole bunch of your bankroll. You definitely want to avoid honing in on one player, beefing up, one player's either over or under, or following just a single game script even. Having options and multiple ways out is extremely important when you're betting this many props.
Especially if you don't bet these that often, and you bet, a lot of your action is this one time a year on the Super Bowl. Now, if you're betting props all year long and somehow you slip through the cracks and haven't been limited, then sure, you can do what you want here. But for those of you who are tuning in and making a bunch of bets, more than you normally make, definitely take that advice. Moose, I want to go back to your Bengals here. They've had some struggles in the red zone. They've had 5 offensive touchdowns through 3 playoff games. Evan McPherson is a very popular MVP bet among the public, which is mind blowing. But that leads to some of the props that we're projecting for both the Bengals passing game from a scoring standpoint and actually from a kicker standpoint.
Yeah, so if you look at the props guide, we're under on touchdowns, over on field goals. One of the early bets that I've made that we've labeled as an ASAP bet is McPherson. Field goal, I have over 1.5 field goals for him. I got that at plus 105. The line we wanted to look for was minus 145, so pretty good edge there, I think. But yeah, so that was the biggest takeaway for me from a macro level is it's always good to see when you have data like that and it confirms your bias of, okay, we're on the unders, but we're over on this because, like I said, Cincinnati sucks in the red zone.
Yeah, exactly. So those are great bets, and I would even say that I would classify that as a value bet. So let's talk about some more value bets. Bets that we think, not necessarily long shot, not necessarily minus 200 or minus 300, but bets that are pretty even money on both sides, or maybe a little bit plus one way or the other. But our projections are pretty different, and we find these props as value. So Mike Carey, I'll throw it to you first. What are some of the bets you're looking at as some of our best value plays for Super Bowl 56?
Sure. And Brian, just to start, like you said, with value bets in comparison to long shots are going to be more about eye test, feel,
Yes.
Trends that you're seeing and leading up to the Super Bowl. But value bets are where we really want to take advantage of, as Moose talked about with that sports betting executive or bookmaker, not really taking a ton of care into making these lines specific for each team. So my 2 favorite value bets, the first one is Joe Mixon over 15.5 rush attempts. On the year, he's averaged 18.1 rush attempts with a median of 18. And I'm going to talk in both of my value bets a lot about average or mean and median, so we can kind of get an idea of how likely Mixon is to hit this number. So when we have an average or mean and median that are right around the same thing, that means there's a lot of consistency, that there aren't outliers dragging the average either higher or lower than the median number. So that we're getting about 2.5 rush attempts extra on Mixon immediately. I think that's like a nice value there for Mixon. He's averaging 4.1 carries, yards per carry on the season. So there's absolutely no reason why, if things aren't going well for Burrow early, that Mixon isn't going to be heavily involved. And even as we saw against the Chiefs, even when nothing was going right, they still pounded Mixon on first and second down early on. So hopefully we can get some of those carries early in the game as those scripted plays play out. The second value bet I like again with the Bengals and again on the rushing attack is Joe Burrow rush yards under 11.5. So Burrow on the year averaged 7.68 yards per game and with a median of 6 yards. So there we're seeing a little bit of a difference. So that's suggesting that there are a few outliers, as there were a couple of games where he had about 25 yards, or that were bringing that average up from the median. His average attempts, he averaged on the season through the playoffs 2.57 attempts with a median of 2 attempts. So he's likely only to run the ball twice. The Rams defense, on the other hand, while their mean was 15.15 yards for the quarterback on the season, including playoffs, their median was 5. And if you go and look at the Rams schedule, they had a lot of games against quarterbacks against teams with rushing attacks with quarterbacks rushing built into the system, like Russell Wilson twice against Kyler Murray. You had one game against Tyler Huntley, who had about 50 some yards, and then even a 17-yard game by some miracle from Kirk Cousins. So while the average might seem like, oh, Joe, this is way under at 11.5, way under the 15 yards that the Rams defense normally gives up. Normally they're giving up far fewer yards to the quarterback.
Really good stuff there, Mike.
So
really good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a great discussion about median and mean and team tendencies, what they allow, and looking at their opponents. So that's really good stuff. Love that. And Joe Mixon, yeah, I'm a big fan of his overs in this game, because the averages throughout the regular season are one thing, but they are not running Samaje Perine at all in the postseason. They're not even giving Chris Evans any snaps. If the ball is being run by a running back, it's Joe Mixon. So if they can get 20 carries on the game, 19 of those are going to be Joe Mixon, right? 18 maybe. So if they get over the number, it's going to be because of Joe Mixon. So Moose, let's kick to you. What values have you seen, maybe you bet already, but that our projections are liking more than what the sports books are putting out?
I will say my analysis isn't as good as Mike Carey's, so thank you for outshining me there. Appreciate it.
I put on my high school statistics hat there for a little bit. Yeah.
He threw us all under the bus, Moose. We should have went first and let him close out the show.
Definitely. So I have two. One, it looks like you only get out in Vegas. I couldn't find it anywhere else. Over at Circa, Skoranek over a half, or I guess will he catch at least one pass? Plus 120. It was plus 150, I believe, when it opened. But over the last half of the season, he's had at least 1 or 2 targets most games, and looks like around a 50% catch rate. So if you basically get, high level speaking, coin toss at plus 120, I think that's a good value bet there. And then the other one is I talked about it just recently. We're over on field goals, over 3.5 field goals, plus 130. I think you can actually wait on this one a little bit. We thought that it was going to trend over, like it was going to be more of an ASAP or when available bet. But I think you can take a look back at that and wait a little bit closer to game day. If it starts to drop, then you can hit it. But yeah, anything over plus 130 for total field goals is good.
And I figured with McPherson being popular and Matt Gay being a known kicker that the public maybe start hammering that. But again, maybe it's something to watch, and maybe we get that wrong sometimes. Here are a couple of the ones that I like. Total kick returns under 3.5 or even under 5.5. Most of this was wild to me because we saw two different books with two completely different numbers, obviously different odds. But what's the latest you've seen on number of total kick returns?
Early from what I checked earlier today, looks like over at the Superbook it's 5.5 under minus 200.
Okay, because we saw a legal sports book, I think in Virginia at 3.5 at some point, right?
I believe so. 3.5 plus 150, I think is what it opened up at.
That's got to be gone.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I still like under total kick returns. Let's monitor what the juice is on that one. We expect either less scoring and or more touchbacks in this game. And then the Bengals, Moose, I hate to say this, they are slow starters, averaging less than 5 points per game in the first quarter. The Rams' second drive efforts have been well documented. So I think the first quarter under 9.5, our game total shows us at 7 or less, our projection. So first quarter under 9.5 at plus money is really solid, a really solid bet if you're looking into some quarters action. All right, let's talk about some long shots, the bets that everyone's been waiting for. If you're public and you're tuning in, these are the bets that you can't wait to get to the front of the line and jam them in. So, Mike Carey, let's go back to you. Don't show us up this time. Favorite long shot bets for the Super Bowl?
I'm only on once a year, so I had to bring, I had to bring it a little bit more than, than normal.
I ran some simulations, and I think that no.
All right. Well, my long shot bets, I don't have too much to say. Tyler Boyd. My first one is Tyler Boyd, first Bengal with the reception at plus 550 at BetMGM. He's getting almost 6 targets per game, and if we look back on especially the Chiefs game and the other previous games, he's getting targeted early in when they're not having success in that first quarter. Teams are trying to lock down Jamar Chase early. Doesn't seem that like T. Higgins is playing in between a tight end and a wide receiver. I'm not sure his role has really been fleshed out here. If CJ Uzoma is back, I really like this bet because I think that opens up the middle even more for Tyler Boyd. So I'd like him first Bengal with the reception at plus 550. My second long shot, I think I like this one even more. And I checked it just before recording the podcast to see if this was still up in the same. But Sony Michel to have the most rushing yards of any player in the game at plus 1,100.
Wow.
So the odds for this are Mixon and Akers at minus 120, minus 115. And then there is a huge gap to get to Michel at plus 1,100. The way I look at it, for the Bengals, if the Bengals are down, Mixon is not going to get those carries. If the Bengals are winning, the Rams will play likely to stuff the run. And with Akers, again, we talked about it early. He hasn't really practiced. Well, he hasn't practiced this past week, and I haven't heard whether or not he's practiced so far this week. Even though this week is more like walkthroughs, anyways. He has a shoulder injury that's huge for a running back. And at the end of the day, Michel is the date that you brought to the prom. You got to take that date home. And I think at plus 1,100, you get one solid run out of Michel, and that is live all of a sudden. And, so that you can have a small risk, large reward there at Michel, most rushing yards, plus 1,100.
That line just seems so off, right? If we assume Michel gets even 30% of the touches, should he be 11-1? It doesn't seem like it to me. So I think that's a really good bet. That's a fantastic bet.
Yeah, he got 50% of the touches in the previous game. If you look, if it's Cam Akers had 2 fumbles against Tampa, then he gets his carries cut by 50% in the next game, and now he's got a shoulder injury. I mean, it's definitely trending towards Michel getting more carries, who's been there before for the Patriots. In this kind of situation, it's just a no-brainer to me that a little bit there on plus 1100.
I will say I'm a big fan of Sonny Michel in Super Bowls. That is for sure. So Sean McVay,
Oh my gosh! I wonder what story that's going to be in reference to.
McVay, come on, buddy, bring us home, man. You brought him to the prom. You got to take him home. So Moose, Mike Carey
Yeah.
talked about first reception for the Bengals. You found some good nuggets on first reception for the Rams.
Yeah, again, this is at BetMGM. Again, I'm in Virginia. I'm assuming it would be in the other spots as well. But OBJ to have the first Rams reception at plus 400, which, again, that just seems off. I looked it back. Even though OBJ didn't play the entire season with the Rams, he still leads the team in this stat with 30% of games. So I think that's huge. And, like we talked, Brian, you and I were talking about this. They like to feed him the ball early, get him hyped up, get the team hyped up. So at plus 400, I think that's a solid play.
Yeah, and this is one of the things. So the math also backs it up, but you got to figure teams are more aware of Cooper Kupp early on in the game. They come into the game plan. We got to shut down Cooper Kupp, and like you said, Odell's an emotional guy, right? And they want to get him the ball fed early. And we've seen legitimately, and it's not like the Odell first receptions have been Stafford drops back, he's going through his reads, he finds Odell on his third read. These first Odell receptions are literally like smoke screens or like quick slants, quick outs. Get Odell his first reception in the game and get him fired up and get the team fired up. So that goes to show there's some narrative, some tape involved, and the math also backs it up. And I think that line is completely wrong. So I like your side of that, Moose. For me, my long shots are on the secondary Rams receivers and tight ends, and both Van Jefferson and Kendall Blanton. We don't think Tyler Higbee is going to suit up. So we'll see if books are cowardly or will they put up a prop on the Rams tight end. I assume they will by Friday. But Kendall Blanton, yes, touchdown, or Van Jefferson, yes, touchdown. You can get these at probably plus 300 or more. I'm a big Van Jefferson guy all this week. All it takes is one, and he's been getting some air yards lately, is going to be on the field a lot. For these guys to play basically 90% of the snaps and have a 3-1 chance, according to the odds, of getting a touchdown, I'm going to take that all day. And I think we'll be betting those once we get to Vegas. So, boys, let's close out the show with our favorite MVP bets. I got to say, there's a lot of value here, too. Mike Carey, who do you think wins the MVP first and foremost? But who do you think is the best bet to win MVP?
Well, I think Moose is gonna pick who I think will probably win the MVP. My pick for the MVP, which I've never done well picking the MVP, so feel free to fade me here. But my MVP is Jamar Chase, which looks like the Superbook has him at 16-1. We talked about how Cooper Kupp has the ability to make big plays after the catch, and same with Jamar Chase. I expect him to see some red zone targets, even though, like again, we talked about the Bengals struggling in the red zone, but you might, he can score from anywhere on the field. And if history plays out again, looking back at the box score from the 2020 National Championship with Burrow and Chase, they have a special connection. I think Burrow is going to lean on that again. Chase had 9 receptions for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And I don't think Burrow's having the 7 touchdowns that he did in that game again. But if Chase can mimic a performance like that, as he's done recently, I think he's got a shot at the MVP. But again, fade me. I'm not good at picking MVP.
Moose, who you got? I know you're going to pick the Bengals side here. So who do you got? Who do you think is going to win the MVP, and then who do you think is mispriced?
So I think Stafford is going to win MVP. Don't want that to happen, but I think that's the best probably value on the slate. I like the most probable for MVP, but I think Joe Mixon can get there at the price. Market price is around 25-1. I actually got it earlier today at 50-1. I think at 50-1, like that's a no-brainer.
Yes.
It's hard for running back to get it. What was it? 98 was the last time. 97 happened. Game script's got to be very weird for running back to get it, but again, 50-1 can make your whole night if it hits.
Yeah, we've seen Joe Mixon before, double-digit or 2-score performance by Mixon. We need the quarterbacks to underperform for sure, but dude, 2% chance of that happening at 50-1. Yeah, I'll take that all day. I agree. I think it's probably Stafford, but I'm kind of surprised at Kupp's odds. I think it's dipped below plus 500 now. but I think anything around 4.5 to 1 or more is a great bet on Cooper Kupp. We've already went at length. Everyone here knows what Cooper Kupp can do. If he goes 9 for 150 and a touchdown, God forbid he gets 2 touchdowns, 20% chance of him being the MVP as a favorite, that seems too low to me. I think you got to get Cooper Kupp MVP allocation in your portfolio this week. So, guys, that'll wrap up the show. I'm excited. We'll be in Vegas here in 2 short days. So let's close out the show with some final thoughts. Mike Carey, final prediction for the game and any other props or discussions we haven't mentioned yet.
I think final prediction, I'll go Bengals 23, Rams 20. Again, I'm highly leveraged towards the Bengals emotionally and financially. But I just like Burrow. I think there's something about his character that is just infectious, and he has the ability to really take a mediocre team, or I mean, they have talent, but their defense is certainly mediocre, and somehow raise them up to a level that their talent isn't expected to be at. So I'm excited to watch this game. I'm very excited to yet again be around other people at a Super Bowl party and feel like I'm pulling, a rabbit out of the hat with the 3 unanswered scores, yes, and shortest TD under 1.5 yards. It's just people who watch football their entire life are mind blown when those bets hit every year.
Every single year. Moose, what we got?
Every single year.
Yeah, again, like Mike Carey said, I am like very much financially invested into the Bengals. So I'm gonna go 28-21 Bengals. I've said this before. I've been saying this for weeks and weeks and weeks. Bengals aren't the best team, but however which way, they just find ways to win. They're in stride right now. And Brian, I know from you playing sports, Mike Carey, I actually don't know if you played sports growing up, but
Mike Carey, let's
games.
stop right there. Mike Carey was one of the most prolific flag football quarterbacks that the Washington Monument leagues have seen. So let's when Mike Carey gets in the zone, I know where you're going, Moose. Mike Carey, when you get in the zone throwing passes, you feel like no one can stop you.
I appreciate it. Put some respect on my name. We had a triple digit win.
We literally put up 100 points in a flag football game with Mike Carey quarterbacking. So let's get some respect here.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is like you're in the zone, it just happens. Like it just shit just happens. So that's why and also as a fan, yes, and as a holder of the Super Bowl ticket, for them to win, yeah, I definitely think 28-21 Bengals. I will say the best part about all this Super Bowl stuff, especially being out in Vegas, is the coin toss. Easy. I actually think it's funny. Some books actually shaded tails, which is just hilarious to think about. But yeah, bet heads, and you're going to lose, and everyone will go nuts. But yeah, coin toss is probably like the best time to start off. Everyone's cheering. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And guys, let me allow myself to be the villain here. Rams win 27-13. The Cinderella story comes to an end. But I will say, I will be wearing Bengals paraphernalia, and I will be rooting for the Bengals. My heart says Bengals. The brain is saying Rams. But however the game turns out, let's get some profits for all of us and for all of you out there listening. Reminder for the last time, the Props Guide is available for free in the Props channel in our Discord server. The link's in the description below. Come join us. Chat it up with us. Any questions about props? There's a lot in the guide, and there's a lot if you don't bet props frequently. We're happy to answer all the questions. We have the expertise and the experience to do that for you. Follow us on Twitter. You see here on the video all of our follows and Twitter handles. Follow us at Occupy Fantasy. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out all of the Super Bowl content that we are pumping out. Again, we'll be in Vegas. If you're going to be in Vegas for Super Bowl weekend, hit us up. We'll gladly meet up, and as long as you're a Bengals fan. So for Mike, for Moose, for me, I'm Brian from Occupy Fantasy. Thanks for listening, and good luck in Super Bowl 56.